Tim Kurkjian. He'll be joining Carl Ravitch, the rest of the ESPN Baseball Tonight team. They return to regular nightly edition throughout the baseball postseason. And Tim Kurkjian joining us from the mothership. Hi, Timmy. How are you?
I'm great, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Where are you going to be watching the games today?
Well, I'm going to be in studio today. Truth be told, I'd rather be at a game. But when you're in studio, you get to watch every pitch thrown of every game, which I will do today. And therefore, I will at least have a working knowledge of what's going on in all the series. When I get to watch the games on TV, I'll be sitting next to Eduardo Perez, which is a treat. So it's the second best thing to actually being at one of the games.
The Brewers put away the Rockies. Are we rooting for the Brewers because it's new and kind of a neat, cute story, or should we be looking at the Brewers as they are the best team in the National League? Or maybe it's both.
It's a little of both. I'm not sure they're the best team in the National League because I still need to see what the Dodgers are going to do from here. I still think the Dodgers have the most talented roster, but there is nothing cute about the Brewers, Dan. They are relentless. Their bullpen is stunningly good. 1.89 ERA since the start of September. That's almost a run lower than any other team in the major league. They bring wave after wave of hard-throwing relievers out of the bullpen. They can hit the ball out of the ballpark. They have a great infield defense. They've won 11 games in a row. They are really good right now. But that Dodger team is really good also. And I think we're going to get an LCS where the two best teams in the league are playing, which is all we can ever ask.
But you get these teams, and it just feels like there's fate. I don't want to say destiny, but it feels like the Brewers have that going this year.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I saw them quite a bit at the end of the season. I did their game 163 against the Cubs, and I don't care how corny this sounds, there is something special going on there. And maybe, and this sounds ridiculous, maybe it's the manager. Maybe it's Craig Counsell. Mark Grace he went to Notre Dame. Mark Grace once described him as Rudy with talent. He's played on 2 championship teams in his career. He understands the job of managing. He's a Milwaukee guy managing the Milwaukee Brewers. He told me that 4 years ago, Hank Aaron was making a speech on stage in Milwaukee, and he called Craig Counsell, who was working for the club but not as the manager, and said, Craig, you have to come up here. So Craig Counsell said, I can't go up there. You're Hank Aaron. I can't sit next to you. You're Hank Aaron. I'm Craig Counsell. And then Hank Aaron started asking him questions, and Counsell told me, oh, my gosh, Hank Aaron is asking me questions about baseball. That's impossible. So that's who we're dealing with as the manager, and that kind of communication and that kind of everyday man that he is, I think, really aids in how well this team is doing.
Clayton Kershaw said he had nothing to prove, didn't have to prove anything to anybody. I felt like maybe he had something to prove to himself, whether he'd admit to it or not. He was brilliant in his last outing, but does Clayton Kershaw have something to prove when it comes to the postseason?
Well, I really don't think so, Dan. Okay. I think that narrative is over. However, we know how this works. You have to win the World Series. You have to win a big game to help win the World Series before you're not just going to be anointed as a good postseason player, but as one of the greatest pitchers of all time. You have to do something in October and help your team win the World Series. Is that fair? Of course it's not. But that start the other night was brilliant. I think he's got more of that in him, and I think he needs just to have that one seminal moment where, you know, he pitches a great game and the Dodgers go on to win the World Series, which is a possibility this year.
Houston's, I don't know if they're underdogs. They're just underappreciated. And here they're leading Cleveland 2-0 in Game 3 today in Cleveland. Assess this Astros team this year as opposed to last year's team.
Well, it's potentially even better because they have Garrett Cole, who just had a 12 strikeout, no walk game.
He was
in a
brilliant
game.
He was brilliant.
Right. Tom Seaver had a 13 strikeout, no walk game, and Cole just put up the second best one of those. It was ridiculous how good he was, and he's added to the team this year. I just worry that offensively they're not the team they were last year. Carlos Correa has a bad back. he hasn't been the same player. But that little Alex Bregman guy has become the best player on the team. Dan, in the postseason, this 5'10" third baseman has 2 homers off of Chris Sale, 1 off Kershaw, 1 off Kenley Jansen, 1 off Trevor Bauer, and 1 off Corey Kluber in the postseason alone. When the game gets the biggest, when the situation gets the biggest, that's when that little guy is at his best. And, man, has he been great. And I think he adds a little extra to that Astro team going into more games here in the postseason because he's even better than he was at this time last year.
Yankees Red Sox tonight at Yankee Stadium. Advantage is?
Well, I got to think it's the Yankees because they're home, and they've got Luis Severino, who's a 19-game winner and is starting to find the great stuff that he had the first 3 months of the season. And I think more than anything, they're starting to hit on that Yankee team. Dan, we've been over this before. 1 through 9, please tell me a team that can beat you with the home run ball like this team can. It's the greatest home run hitting team in baseball history. And now Gary Sanchez, the catcher who's had such a miserable year, is really starting to swing it. So I think that gives the advantage to the Yankees, but anyone who thinks, the Red Sox are in big, big trouble, hasn't watched the Red Sox all year. This is going to be a great series, and I just think it's destined to go 5 games.
Yeah, the pitching with the Red Sox, Sale we weren't sure about because he loses velocity this time of the year. David Price is really the conundrum for this team. Right?
He's a conundrum for all of us, Dan. This makes absolutely no sense. He was so good for about 2.5 months to start the second half that you just thought he was a given going into the playoffs. And yet the Yankees clearly have his number. He has terrible trouble at Yankee Stadium. And now they're going to have to figure out how to beat the Yankees with David Price still in the rotation. He's going to have to pitch again, or maybe they'll just use him out of the bullpen. I don't know, but that has to get fixed if they're going to get past the Yankees.
Great stuff as always, Tim. Tell Carl and everybody else, Eduardo, that we said hello, and have fun today.
Okay, Dan. Thanks so much. See you.
That's Tim Kurkjian, baseball analyst.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.